Hello, Crime Squad podcast listeners. It feels so good to say that. Welcome back to Crime Squad podcast with me, your host, Natasha. This is a Canadian true crime podcast featuring both solved and unsolved cases. If you like what you hear, join the squad and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. A like, comment, or rating would be really helpful in getting the show out to more audiences. I would be forever grateful. Let's address the big thing right off the bat. I have been missing in action since my episode about Misty Murray published in September. But I'm back with an episode for you, and it is a local London case. Okay, squad, let's get into today's case. October 13th. Just an ordinary day for most, but sometimes October 13th falls the second Monday of the month, which means it's Thanksgiving Day for us Canadians. On a day that's typically filled with food and family, there is an undertone of despair for a select few who are still impacted by the horrific events that took place in 1983. An empty seat remains at the table, a constant reminder of a life taken too soon. For the past several years, the evening of October 13th is a day where Tammy Dennett and supporters gather at an apartment building on Oakville Ave. They walk from the building to the variety store just down the street that still remains today. On October 13th, 1983, the Awcock family would be thrust into a nightmare that they are still in today, 41 years later. On October 13th, 1983, Donna Awcock was murdered, and her killer has never been found. Donna Jean Awcock was born March 7, 1966, to parents Carolyn and Donald Awcock. Donald went by a nickname, Bud, so I'll refer to him that way going forward. Bud and Carolyn were wed in 1960, and together they created a large, close-knit family. They had 5 children: Bill, Colleen, Tammy, Laura, and Donna. As the children grew up, the family remained close. They even had dinner together every Sunday, when Carolyn and Bud would make roast beef and enjoy the company of their children, who were growing into adults. In the 1980s, Bud and Carolyn had an apartment at 88 Cheyenne Avenue in London, Ontario. Now, the street has since changed its name, and the change took place in the mid-90s. The reason for the change was because the reputation of the neighborhood, specifically 2 apartment buildings. These buildings were known to be infested by cockroaches, had frequent sewage backups, and the relationship between the landlord and tenants were strained at the best of times. So what's in a name? Apparently a lot, because they changed the name in the hopes that it would refresh the reputation. Now, Bud and Carolyn were always surrounded by family. In the fall of 1983, they definitely had a full house. In their modest 2-bedroom apartment lived Laura and Donna, who were both teenagers and shared a bedroom. Bud and Carolyn had the other bedroom. And then recently their daughter Tammy, along with their son-in-law Wally, Tammy's husband, and Tammy and Wally's 2 children, were also living there. Tammy was pregnant with the couple's 3rd child, and they were searching for larger accommodations for their growing family. In this transition period, Bud and Carolyn welcomed them with open arms. Tammy, Wally, and the children slept in the living room on a pull-out couch. The other family members weren't far either. Colleen, the couple's oldest daughter, lived in the same apartment building, just residing a few floors above. Their brother Bill had left London for greener pastures, so he was the only absent family member. Yes, it certainly would have been busy in the Awcock household. The newest family member, a boy, was due to enter the world in late October of 1983. Daily life would have been abuzz with different things going on. Teenage life is never easy, so I can only imagine how 2 sisters could have their heated moments. Add in a couple of kids running around, and it's the formula for a busy but happy life. Donna was quiet with most people, but once she let you in, you'd see how goofy and silly she could be. She had a playful side that was such a treat. Donna was a bit of a tomboy who loved being outside and enjoyed playing baseball. She didn't have a lot of friends, but the friendships she developed, she made sure to keep close. Looking at photographs of Donna, I am struck by her eyes. They are large and almond-shaped and definitely have a little bit of an impish glint to them. She has long lashes, a bit of a snub nose, and a sweet smile. Her hair is shortish and blonde, and it looks like it has feathered layers, which is obviously a very popular style in the 80s. Donna was often called up to babysit children in the neighborhood. It was a great job for a girl looking to earn some cash. Now, October marks the beginning of spooky season, and many of us probably remember sitting around a campfire or speaking in hushed tones at a sleepover, telling scary stories. There's the one about the babysitter, when the threatening calls are coming to the landline, and then you find out that the calls are coming from inside the house. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, look up babysitter horror stories and hopefully it comes up for you. But it could be also that I'm super dating myself. Anyway, on the night of Thursday, October 13th, Donna Awcock, a pretty 16-year-old girl, would begin her own personal horror story. And this would forever alter the lives of not just the Awcock family, but the community of London, Ontario. It was an uncharacteristically warm day in November when my friend Shauna and I decided to take a drive to the Fanshawe Conservation Area in London, Ontario. The entrance is different now than what it was in the 80s, so we followed the entrance at Clark Road, pretty much right where it meets Kalele. It used to be fully paved, but has long since overgrown into a maze of wild plants and other foliage. The remnants of this pathway into Fanshawe Conservation Area are the hydro lines. Back when this was the original entrance, you could follow the hydro lines all the way in and your tires would crunch on the gravel road. We park my car and get out. The first thing I noticed was how beautiful the landscape was, all the trees and tall grasses. But even beautiful spaces can have trauma woven into them. It was sunny and warm, a no-jacket kind of day. The clouds, though, were dark and gray in contrast to the yellow of the sun. It was like a reminder of the horror of that day in October, and the clouds hung about, occasionally blotting out the sun, creating a moody atmosphere. A reminder of a time that is so far in the past, but is still very raw and real to the family Donna left behind. To our left was the Thames River, which quite literally runs through all of London. It's visible through the trees that are slowly shedding their leaves. Winter is on its way. We start the trek down to the area where Donna Awcock's battered body was located on October 13th, 1983. It's clear-cut now, probably for another housing development. The view of the Thames from our hilly perch is like something out of a nature magazine, sparkling like a hologram from the glint of the sun. We're standing on a steep ravine, and it was here that Donna lay, waiting to be found. When Donna hadn't come home after a babysitting gig, the Awcocks reported her missing. But unfortunately, like so many missing person cases, police were hesitant to pursue anything because they figured she'd come home soon. They didn't take the disappearance seriously, but the family knew better. They decided to immobilize friends and neighbors to search for Donna, which they managed to get about 200 people together, which is crazy, but that's the amount of people that banded together to try and help find her. They found nothing, though. This continued into the late afternoon of October 14th, when finally Todd Ireland and his friend Thomas decided to go searching for Donna. So Todd Ireland was Donna's ex-boyfriend, and he knew as well that Running away or disappearing wasn't like Donna at all. She would never have just taken off and gone somewhere, at least not by her own doing. Todd and his friend Thomas set off on foot down Clark Road with a roommate's dog in tow, hoping to find Donna. They assumed Donna was probably hurt or lost, and she would be super grateful to have them find her. They would be her heroes. The dog urged the two boys, teenagers as well, toward the ravine, the very ravine I stood on in November. They looked down the embankment and saw the body of a young female face down. It was Donna, and she wasn't hurt or lost. She was lifeless, her body strewn in a way that suggested she'd been rolled down the hill, likely from a vehicle. This implied she was tossed out like garbage, like she was nothing. Donna was naked from the waist down, aside from a pair of socks, with her shirt pushed up to expose her breasts. She had been brutally beaten around the head and face, and there was something stuffed into her mouth, protruding from between her lips. Immediately, Todd and Thomas fled the scene to seek help. They arrived at the Cheyenne Street apartments just as Donna's pregnant sister Tammy and her husband Wally were exiting to the parking lot to go see where they had gotten off to, because they knew that they were searching for Donna, and it had been a while that Todd and Thomas were gone. When they saw Wally, they took him aside and told him what they'd found. They'd found Donna laying on the hill above the ravine at Fanshawe Conservation Area, and she wasn't alive. According to Tammy in Vanessa Brown's book, The Forest City Killer, Wally was so impacted by the news of his sister-in-law's death that he began beating the two boys. Tammy recalls screaming for him to stop while holding her swollen, pregnant belly. It took several hours for police to begin cordoning off the area and marking it a crime scene. When they arrived, they turned Donna over, and detectives took note that she had something protruding from between her lips. Putting myself there at 8 p.m. on October 13th, 1983, I'm struck with how dark it would be out there. And as an officer on scene, I would have had an extremely difficult time staring at the face of this young girl from the London community who had clearly met a terrible fate. She was one of our own. Donna's battered body was transferred to the morgue, and Donna would need to be identified by someone who knew her so the medical examiner could begin their work. Donna's parents, Bud and Carolyn, must have known in their heart of hearts when Todd came back to Tammy with the shocking discovery that it was going to be Donna. I'm sure they were clinging to the hope that it was somebody else, anybody else, anyone but their Donna. Maybe Todd was wrong in the identification of her. The body was face down after all. They anxiously waited until finally they could have closure, good or bad. It was after 2 a.m. in the early morning hours of October 15th that they received the call to go in and identify Donna's body. Overcome with emotion, the couple made their way to the hospital. Carolyn broke down in the waiting room and knew she wasn't going to be able to do it, so Bud would have to do it. He went into the room. Though everything in Bud wanted for it not to be true, he confirmed to the examiner it was Donna. Donna, his lovable, goofy, and shy 17-year-old daughter. Bud witnessed something a person should never have to. But nothing can be processed on the body forensically until the identification is made, and Donna was completely in the state that she had been found in. And it was clear it had been a vicious and violent attack. Donna lay on the medical table, and Bud saw that she had something orange sticking out from between her lips. He couldn't look any longer. He felt he had looked too long already. Despite doing everything he could, the image was seared into his brain, and he would never be the same again. According to Tammy, her dad began having nightmares and lost a sense of purpose in life. The autopsy revealed Donna had been strangled, beaten, and sexually assaulted. As it turns out, the item that was stuffed into her mouth was an orange plastic bag. A partial print was lifted off the bag and taken into evidence. Now, it was apparent Donna had been murdered, so police began their investigation. And they started by determining Donna's last whereabouts. In 1983, Michelle Maynard was in her early 20s with 2 small children. A single parent doesn't have it easy, that's for sure. And Michelle liked to blow off steam when she could, usually attending a local bar called the Town and Country. It was a dive of a place and hosted a lot of individuals society would probably classify as a little rough around the edges, to put it politely. Michelle Maynard's connection to the Awcocks was that she lived in the same apartment complex. Her balcony actually faced Bud and Carolyn's balcony, and it was in close enough proximity that they could wave at each other across the way. Donna's sister Tammy recalls Michelle wasn't really in the highest of standing in the eyes of the Awcock family. She partied what seemed like a lot for a mother of 2 young kids, and was often in the company of older men, people who could come across as intimidating. On the night of October 13th, Michelle wanted to go party, so she asked Donna if she wouldn't mind babysitting. Donna agreed and left her own apartment to go to Michelle's unit. Donna sat with the 2 children, and Michelle arrived at the Town and Country bar and made her way to a table, where she joined a group of people she didn't already know. There was a woman named Joanne at the table who was drinking with the group that night, and both Michelle and Joanne were very drunk at some point in the evening. When Michelle was ready to go home, one of the men offered to give her a ride. Apparently, both Michelle and Joanne couldn't remember his name. They also had a lot of trouble remembering what he looked like, but they initially described him as being in his late 20s to early 30s, of average height or taller. He had a slim build, a clean-shaven face with bushy eyebrows and sideburns. Witnesses recall him wearing faded blue jeans, a long-sleeved blue shirt, and cowboy boots. He was possibly driving a Ford Torino. The bar scene in London hosted a lot of regulars, but this guy seemingly came from out of the blue. At any rate, he and Michelle started driving home and decided on the way home that they wanted to grab some food. They stopped at a pizza joint and got a pizza, bringing it as takeout into the car and eating it on the way back to the apartments. When they arrived at the apartments, Michelle told the man to wait in his car because she had to relieve the babysitter and pay her for her time. Now again, all accounts say that Michelle was very intoxicated, and she took the pizza box upstairs with her to her apartment with the remaining slices in the box. By this time, it was about 2:30 in the morning. Donna was still awake and waiting for Michelle. Michelle offered Donna some pizza, and the two sat there munching on the last 4 slices, and then there was a knock at the door. It seemed like Michelle had forgotten about the stranger who drove her home. My guess is the man thought he was probably going to get laid and was tired of waiting. Michelle went to the door, rebuffed the man, and told him again to wait in the car. She then asked Donna to walk to the closest corner store, which is about a 3-minute walk from the apartment. Now, imagine for a second you're a store clerk, and a young woman comes into the store around 3 a.m. She looks like she's upset about something, and she asks you to use the phone. But for some reason, you say no. Maybe you have a good reason, maybe you don't. In all likelihood, though, you were the last person to see that young girl alive. Donna didn't arrive back at Michelle's with the cigarettes that Michelle had sent her to buy, and Michelle, drunk and wanting to have a cigarette, walked to the store to get them herself. She didn't think anything of Donna not coming back, I guess. Maybe she just assumed Donna went home. But I think the bigger questions here are about the mystery man that was waiting in the parking lot for Michelle. Where was the man? Did he go back to the car? And was he the reason why Donna was so upset and wanted to use the phone at the convenience store? Who would Donna have called? Could it have prevented the devastating act to follow if only she'd been able to use that phone? I guess we'll never know. But all I can picture is Donna emotional enough about something that's happened to want to call someone and being denied that ability. Did she feel unsafe? Was there someone watching her, following her? It's anyone's guess. But the fact is, Donna never made it home after leaving that store. Michelle was naturally one of the people police wanted to talk to immediately. She was interviewed by police on October 14th, 1983. I'm assuming this is where she was questioned about the night out, who she was with, and so forth. But being as drunk as she was that night, she claimed to remember very little about what she had gotten up to and who she'd been with. Now, this is something I find extremely odd, and the detective in me wants to uncover all the facts here. After being questioned initially, Michelle Maynard disappeared for a full week. She was unreachable, and it's unclear if she left her kids in the care of someone else or took them with her. Where did she go? Why did she leave? The timing seems poor at best, and at the very least, extremely suspicious. Her whereabouts and reason for leaving remain unknown to this day. But police did interview her upon her return, and she was obviously cleared of wrongdoing because she was free to leave, and this case is still unsolved. Michelle even did eventually take a lie detector test, which she ended up passing. Here's the thing about reputations, though. Even though Michelle was supposedly innocent regarding Donna's disappearance, many people, including Donna's sister Tammy, believe Michelle is involved somehow. Again, she had that reputation of being fast with guys, especially older ones, and living a bit of a party lifestyle. Plus, Michelle had a brother named Michael, who also happened to live in the same apartment building but a different unit. If Michelle was considered bad news, Michael definitely carried the same kind of rep. On the night of October 13th, 1983, Michael and Michelle must have had the same idea in mind. It was a great night for some boozing. That night, Michael was in the company of a friend of his named Joe Tripp. Michelle and Michael Maynard were certainly a little rough around the edges, and Joe also wasn't too far off of that. A little bit about Joe. He was the father of 4 children, and he actually became a father at quite a young age. He didn't do well in school as a kid, and he ended up dropping out at the age of 8, so that would be 3rd grade. Joe preferred the company of people younger than him. In Joe Tripp made a home in London, Ontario, with his common-law wife and their 2 children. Had a horrible secret. He'd arrived in Canada from Tennessee in the late 1970s. But Joe Tripp was harboring a dark secret, and everything would come to a head in 1989. I'm sure some, if not all of you, Squad, have watched Unsolved Mysteries at one time or another. The show recently made a huge resurgence on Netflix, which I absolutely binge-watched. The original Unsolved Mysteries, though, first aired in 1988 and featured Robert Stack as the host. One of the very first episodes to ever air on television included a UFO sighting, an update on a solved case, a missing person, and a wanted individual. The man who was wanted by police was named Joe Shepard. He had been arrested in Tennessee in 1978 and was accused of murdering 2 teenage girls, 14-year-old Kathy Clowers in 1976 and 15-year-old Roxanne Woodson in 1978. Joe was a major suspect in the case of Kathy Clowers, but police could not arrest him because they did not have enough physical evidence. Only 2 years later, Roxanne Woodson went missing, and her body was later found buried in a shallow grave on the Shepard family's property. Joe was sought by police, but he evaded arrest and fled to North Carolina. At this time, he was 25 years old. He was eventually arrested, and he confessed to being with Kathy the night she died. He claims he did not kill her, but that he did bury her body. To prove his word, he took police to a shallow grave, and Kathy's remains were located there. The police charged Joe with murder, and he was placed in the Bradley County Jail to await his trial. But Joe had a plan, and he and 2 other inmates escaped the jail. Joe completely disappeared, and his location was speculated upon for over 10 years by local residents and law enforcement. The story of Joe Shepard had all the right components for good television. A horrific crime committed against 2 innocent teenage girls, the accused fleeing not once but twice, once out of state and then the next to an escape from a county jail. Unsolved Mysteries aired this story, and shortly after it aired, police received a tip. Joe Shepard was alive and well. If you haven't already figured it out, Joe Shepard and Joe Tripp are one and the same. Joe had fled to Canada after his escape from jail. He adopted a new name and lived in Little London, Ontario for close to 10 years. It was a neighbor that sealed his fate, and it took several years for Joe to be extradited to the U.S. to be tried for his crimes. So let's just quickly go over the facts again for a second here. Michael Maynard and Joe Tripp were friends and were together the night Donna Awcock was murdered. Joe Tripp had killed 2 young teenage girls in Tennessee, but fled the country to go into hiding in Canada. This is the perfect suspect in Donna's case. He had to have been the one that killed her. The proximity is right. Michael knew Donna from the apartment complex. And as a side note, Michael also made awkward comments to Donna about having his way with her at some point, which obviously I can't corroborate, so take it for what it is. But it just seemed to line up so perfectly. The Awcock family was hopeful the mystery of what happened to their sweet Donna would be solved. While it wouldn't bring Donna back, at least someone would be convicted of this horrific crime. Joe was accused of murdering Donna, but denied his involvement. It would take until 1995 to find out the answer. And to everyone's shock, including my own, Joe Shepard was cleared of being involved in Donna's death. His DNA had been tested against DNA at the scene, and it was not a match. Donna's case was back to being unsolved with no further leads. It's been 41 years since Donna was found brutally murdered and carelessly tossed down a ravine just 2 kilometers away from her home. As the years wear on, many people connected to the case have since passed away. Tammy, Donna's sister, is very much alive and still fights to solve the case and keep Donna in the eye of the public. Tammy has a Facebook group called Justice for Donna Jean Awcock, and she posts regularly to keep Donna's story alive. I admire her so much for her tenacity and her voice. On March 7th of this year, Donna would have celebrated her 59th birthday. I can only hope that her case will be solved and solved soon. Hopefully, 2025 is the year. In the beginning of this episode, I painted a picture for you of the location where Donna was found so many years ago. When I went there, the nice thing was there was a memorial that marks Donna's presence. It was so touching to see the collection of items placed so lovingly amidst the natural setting. And the message is clear. The message has always been the same. Find my killer. If you know anything at all, no matter how small or insignificant, about what happened to Donna Awcock, or the man who was with Michelle Maynard, or really anything, and I cannot stress this enough, you never know what could crack the case. Please contact London Police, or to report anonymously, you can do so by Crime Stoppers. You can even submit tips online through both of these services. Do the brave thing, do the right thing, and may Donna never be forgotten. Okay, squad, that is going to do it for this episode of Crime Squad podcast. I thank you for your patience with this. My maternity leave actually ended in October, and I'm being real here. Juggling full-time work with being the mother of 2 young children and managing a home is challenging. It doesn't leave a lot of time for my passion projects, so Crime Squad podcast did take a backseat. If you listen often, you'll know I'm not monetized and I handle the entirety of this process. The research, the writing, the recording and editing, the music production, the publishing, just all of it. I'm not sure of the future of this podcast, but I still love doing what I do, and I hope you love listening as much as I love creating. I am working on another episode already, and I will try to begin posting monthly again. If anything changes, though, I will absolutely post a farewell episode so you all aren't in the dark. Be sure to follow on social media. I am on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Happy New Year, squad. I can't believe that this has been going on for 2 years already as of January 14th of this year. It's been a lot of fun, and I do thank you for your listening and being fans of the work. As always, stay safe and be kind to each other. Until next time.